Welcome to Line Change, a podcast about hockey, social issues, and change makers in the game we love. I'm your host, Ian Kennedy. Welcome to Line Change. I'm Ian Kennedy, your host, and today my guest is Winnipeg Jets prospect Danny Zhilkin. In 2022, Danny Zhilkin was a third-round draft pick, 77th overall of the Winnipeg Jets, who signed the prospect shortly thereafter. Zhilkin, born in Russia, who moved to the Toronto area as a youth, is now playing in the OHL. What got me interested in talking to Danny Zhilkin is that he's not just a hockey player. At 19 years old, he's already giving back to the community. Alongside his girlfriend, Lauren Schaas, a sports psychology major at Boston University, Zhilkin started Zhilkin's Vision, a mental health organization looking to raise funds and give back to youth in need. It's not always easy for young hockey players to talk about mental health. We've seen programs trying to destigmatize the issues surrounding the game, but it's still not enough. As my friend Macintosh Ross wrote, men who dare show vulnerability, foregoing the stereotypical tough hockey player persona, likewise open themselves up to criticism, if not outright bullying. It's difficult for young hockey players. Hockey's a game of insiders and outsiders. Anyone who does not fit the stereotypical norm risks becoming an outsider. That could be through being a hockey player that's dealing with mental health. Hockey's always been a game of insiders who marginalize outsiders. Anyone who doesn't fit the traditional hegemonic masculinity is risking being out. It's a part of the game that truly needs to change. In a recent study from University of British Columbia researchers published in the Journal of Qualitative Research in Sport, Exercise and Health, researchers studied a group of National Hockey League and professional players. Unfortunately, what they found was that hockey players often struggled to deal with mental wellness and mental unwellness. They felt pressure to keep things to themselves and to conform their identity to that of the sport. As lead author Katie Crawford said, "What I saw was a lot of different barriers, things like fear of job security, fear of losing your position on the team, judgment from teammates, judgment from coaches, judgment from the general public and from fans." While Danny Zhilkin has yet to make the National Hockey League, he dreams of one day making that level, and he recognizes the issue of pressure, the issue of trying to conform, to play through injuries, to face criticism both online and from scouts. It's something that all hockey players struggle with. Personally, growing up as a hockey player, I remember one of the most difficult days was the last day I played a game of hockey at the junior level. I remember coming to the dressing room and wondering what was next, and feeling like I'd lost a member of my family, something that I'd loved for so long. After that game, I truly struggled to think about who I was as a person. My identity had always been tied to being a hockey player. Walking down the halls of my school, I'd wear my team jacket proudly. Every weekend, I'd know what I was doing. I was going to play. And losing that, having it go away, made me question who I was as a person. Beyond that, we all struggle with some form of mental health. We all have our good days and bad days, some of us more than others. I know that for a fact personally. And finding ways to cope with that, finding support systems, are not always present in hockey. The focus in hockey for too long has been on winning, on ignoring those aspects of our humanity, sacrificing anything for the team, whether that's playing through illness or injury, whether it's ignoring our friends, our education, not getting a job, whatever it might be, hockey comes first. That's always been the case for elite hockey players. And for Danny Zhilkin, he's trying to change that. It's truly inspiring to see someone at that young age working to do this in the game. And while at Line Change, we often talk about some of the more difficult issues in the game, we're also trying to highlight the good people in the game and to celebrate the good that is being done and to show that hockey players, like anybody else, are real people. With that in mind, let's jump into my conversation with Winnipeg Jets prospect Danny Zhilkin. All right, so thanks for joining me, Danny. And we're here. We're going to talk about Zhilkin's vision along with your hockey career. And I think it's inspiring for lots of people, especially young hockey players, to see a person of your age getting socially involved and talking about topics that aren't just hockey and aren't just, reaching for your professional hockey goals, which of course you are, but doing something more. So I'm wondering if we can just start by you telling me a little bit about your organization, what Jilkin's vision is going to do, what the goals are, and maybe what inspired you to do this.
Yeah, I've wanted to do this ever since my first OHL year, being captained by Cam Hillis at the time. He had his own Hillis Foundation, and Garrett McFadden was the previous captain for the Guelph Storm, and he's raised I think over $100,000 already with his mental health campaign. And Lauren's my girlfriend. She goes to Boston University for sports psychology. She's about to be in a doctorate program, so she's going to be a licensed sports psychologist, which is pretty awesome. And both of us thought it was the appropriate time in the beginning of last season to start something like this. Sorry, this season, and it's been taken off so far. We've raised over, I believe, close to $1,300 for Canadian Mental Health Association with the jersey raffle, and it's been going great so far. So many young people are faced with, I wrote some things down here. I put pressure at, at super young age, and with the OHL draft, especially, you're 14, 15, and you already have scouts looking at you, and you're trying to make that, take that next step for hockey. And injuries, being in the public eye, like I said, those the scouts, and self doubt is a big one, I think. And when you're not performing as well as you should be, I think that I struggle with that as well. I think I'm a very high elite athlete, and when I'm not performing, I think I'm very hard on myself.
Yeah, it's so true that from a very young age, I mean, even before the OHL draft here, just to be on those AAA teams and staying at that level and getting your name out there on the radar of teams from the time you're very young, and then of course coming with that is that critique where scouts and online bloggers and websites and things like that are talking about not just the good things about you, but kind of the bad things. And I guess, in the OHL for someone like yourself and lots of other young people, you have to move away from home and your identity focuses so much on hockey. Um, do you think like starting this effort, this organization, do you see it as a way to kind of help fill out that identity of yours away from hockey? Because I know that so many people within the game are so tied to this when retirement comes or when an injury comes, they don't really know what to do. But I'm wondering if this is something that you are finding personally motivating or a passion of yours that's bringing more to your life than just hockey.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think when on your days off, especially if you have something to do that's not hockey, you kind of just want to forget about hockey almost. And I say to myself, I always want to do something that I love away from the game as well. And whether it's just playing video games with the guys, or obviously going golfing and stuff like that. I think it's great. I think the more I learn about this topic as well, it helps myself tremendously as well. Being mentally strong. I've worked with a sports psychologist all whole of last off season, and she helped me tremendously. She was a Russian Olympic skier, so she's got her own experiences, and I think it helped me a lot.
Yeah, of course, most people that are knowledgeable about the game would tell you that the physical aspects are only so much, and being able to put those things together under pressure with people watching, that's a major component of it itself. Now, I'm wondering, of course, you mentioned that your girlfriend is going to school to be a sports psychologist, and that's something that's incredible. Obviously, was probably inspiring or a portion of this process as well. But I think that most people, myself included, that have gotten into helping others with mental health or being involved in this fundraising or counseling others or whatever it might be, being a role model or a mentor. We probably do it because we ourselves have struggled at times. And I'm just wondering if, you've had any times that you're willing to talk about or things that, that you struggle with personally, even if it's not serious or significant, but that made this more personal and important to yourself.
Yeah, I think I think kind of last year, I think it was, the time where I struggled the most. It wasn't obviously anything severe, but, it was my NHL draft year, and it's something that I, look forward to my whole entire life. And as I said, I'm a, high level athlete, and when I didn't play as well, I kind of, self doubted myself, and I was questioning myself and my abilities. I think that's one of the biggest things, elite high level athletes struggle with is just, self doubt. So I think last year was kind of eye opening for me, and learning more about, the sports psychology side of hockey kind of helped me, and, it worked out. And it's good that, I had that experience last year, and moving on forward, I have, a lot of resources, and I know how to, kind of cope with it.
Yeah, of course, moving up to that next level is going to be even more difficult. It's another step. You're almost there where you're ready to graduate from junior hockey into the professional ranks, and that's going to be another challenge for you, of course. And as you said, you've gained some skills and knowledge. But looking at your OHL career, and of course, you were drafted by the Winnipeg Jets and signed. You know what do you think you've taken from being a part of this bigger picture, starting a foundation that's helping people with mental health issues that you might be able to translate to your own well-being or some of the stressors that you're going to face? Because let's face it, hockey in Canada, of course, puts you in a fishbowl, and you were drafted by a Canadian franchise, so you're not going to have the anonymity of being in one of the perhaps the southern NHL teams where you go into camp and nobody recognizes you. Here, I think you're going to step there, and I'd be surprised if you get through camp without people knowing exactly who you are.
Yeah, I think a big thing, if you play for Team Canada, like I was lucky enough to do so for the U18 championship, we won gold there. I think big thing just years past through in the World Juniors teams is how much critique they get from the fans and from the media. I think it's a you know some World Juniors team they put out there that they deleted Twitter or Instagram for the duration of the tournament. So I think that was good on them. And yeah, obviously being in the Canadian hockey market is, everybody's going to know you and everybody talks. So I think, just being able to shut that down and kind of just focus on yourself and continue doing what you love. And as I said, it's good to kind of distract yourself with things away from the game as well. So I think those are big ones.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm well versed in Twitter, and I take a ton of abuse online for speaking about social issues, and I've also at times, kind of regretted perhaps the critique that I've given to a person. If I don't want it to become personal. I always want to talk about the issue, um, and I rarely go out there and say, so and so is an awful hockey player or they cost their team a game. Um, but do you ever, have you ever seen media or scouting reports or anything like that alongside yourself that have caused you to question or to, that maybe hurt your feelings or made you self-doubt a bit?
I think I've definitely seen some of those on Twitter, but obviously it's obviously just media, and as I said, I try to do my best to kind of block that out, and no one's gonna help me by myself, right? So if I motivate myself enough and just kind of forget about that and kind of try to show them what I can do on the ice and respond with a bigger kind of big response and kind of show them what I'm made out of. It's same thing with coaches, right? When you get critiqued or feedback and something that you don't like, you just kind of some people can self doubt themselves or just go out on the ice and do the best they can. So
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act for athletes, for media, about how we talk about each other and some of the stressors. And I think that one of the things that is important to talk about here is perhaps why hockey players uh, don't talk as openly about mental health. I know it's becoming far more normalized. There's lots of people doing it right now, yourself included. But hockey players are taught to work through injuries, to not face, to overcome adversity, to not be emotional. Um, what do you think from your experiences along those lines? Is there something that you believe for why mental health is not as talked about primarily among your peers, hockey players between 16 and 21 or so?
Yeah, I think it's obviously, as you said, it's great that more people are coming out and kind of, posting on social media. Like that one player, I believe, I think he was on Chicago Blackhawks, that just came out, said he was, he had severe anxiety. So I think, the more and more athletes speak out, I think the better. But I think the biggest thing is, hockey's such a tough sport, and everybody sees themselves as these, such tough people that if you come out, you can, be seen as weak in some cases, or you know, it's kind of, that emotional side of hockey isn't talked about enough. I think it's more, people just see us on the ice. They don't, think about what's going on at home, or, at school, or just outside of the rink in your life. So I think they just, there's just a stigma around mental health, and people just think that you're weak if you speak out and kind of say like that. But I think you're, obviously it's the opposite. I think you're strong if you speak out and talk about the mental health side.
It's a part that people don't understand. I don't think that everyone realizes when they're at an OHL game where there's 5,000 people in the stands that these are for the most part high school students that might have gotten broken up with, might be away from their mom and dad for the first times in their lives, might have a test the next day. There's so many different aspects that people just forget that there's real human beings playing the game, and you're expected to perform without ever feeling bad. And that's you know, having played junior hockey myself and AAA through my whole childhood, I think the only time I ever really saw sadness or emotion in that way was when the last game of the year happened and you're eliminated from playoffs or something like that, and you've got someone in the dressing room with a towel over their head crying, and that's like the acceptable time. It had nothing to do with the other parts of it. We all just kind of came in there like little robots and tried to play the game the best we could, and you know it, you overcome. You're taught to be tough, to play through injuries, and um, it's not always the best thing. There's it just doesn't equate to being a real human being. And I'm wondering for you at your age, you obviously see lots of little kids at the games, and you already are in this role model position. What do you think you're hoping to show them, or what are you trying to show them about what it means to not just be a hockey player, but be a person that shows real emotion and that talks about these things?
Yeah, well, I think it's great that, I have a little brother going through what I went through already. He's turning 15 next season, is his OHL draft year. I think number one thing, away from the mental side, I tell him to just work hard and do the best you can, obviously. And when things don't work out, everybody makes mistakes. So I think it's, I've put out on social media and the Zhilkin's vision that I think our slogan is "It's okay to not be okay." I think
Mm.
that's a big thing, and we kind of try to promote that as much as possible. And it's okay to kind of make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, even the Connor McDavids and the Sidney Crosbys of hockey. So I think that's a pretty big thing as well.
It definitely is a thing that hockey players are taught not to make mistakes, and that when we do, we're going to face criticism. And the way that the media landscape is right now, of course, myself included, um, it seems like readers want to hear about the bad things, and we focus too much on those, and we don't talk about good news stories. And that was a focus of mine in coming into having these conversations, was highlighting people that are doing good things, not just the people that are making mistakes, and trying to inspire other people to look at hockey players as real human beings that are dealing with the same things as anybody else, and um, you know doing work to make things better. So I'm wondering, you know, I'm not expecting you to be the next Connor McDavid, but let's say you're lucky enough to play in the NHL and have a career. Do you think that you're going to expand upon what you're doing moving forward?
Of course, I think so. Especially coming into Winnipeg, hopefully next season, being in the AHL team there. There was an incident with a player years back, and they have a foundation there called Project 11 with their where they support mental health as well. So I think just kind of being involved with that as well, and kind of combining our two platforms and expanding on a bigger basis. I think that would be huge and great for the communities, not only here in my area, but in Winnipeg as well.
It really is just a topic that I think impacts so many young people now, and whether it's the combinations of social media or we're just more willing to talk about it now. The prevalence of all these things is coming up, and hockey players, that culture of silence and being tough and not speaking up is really quite the thing. Do you think that hockey players might be afraid to speak? As you said, they might be portrayed as weak, but do you think that there's kind of an idea out there that if you talk about these things that coaches or scouts or teams might be worried about you or concerned about you, or maybe even not want you around their organization because they're not willing to deal with the other portion of being a human?
Yeah, I think it's becoming better now, and over the last few years, I think more and more teams are putting more emphasis on the mental side of hockey and inviting sports psychologists or doing certain seminars on their teams. And being at an NHL camp last summer, or I say fall, there was we had a lot of mental health seminars, and going through the Team Canada programs over the years, there was always mental health help. And here in the OHL now, we have a great sports psychologist on our team. So I think it's, as I said, people might be, hockey players might be seen as weak, but I think the more and more players come out, I think it's better, and I think they're going to just kind of feed off one another, and the more come out, the more will come out, I think.
Yeah, it's obviously if you're on a team, you want to be open with your teammates and you want to form that tighter bond so you can trust each other on and off the ice. I think that's the ideal team situation, and for too long we've avoided that and just worried about on ice performance, but not realizing that the mental side of things can greatly impact that, and not just the stress of being criticized by your coach or a scout, or but the real family things, the real life aspects of being a human, and that's so important. Now, for you personally, when you're coming into a game, a camp, whether it was the tryouts for Team Canada or going to the Jets camp coming up, is there anything you do personally that helps you stay calm, that helps you stay focused, that personal practice that you could tell a young child about that's wondering about how they can help deal with those stressors?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me was have a routine before games. I think that helps me prepare physically and mentally as well. I have a thing where I meditate in the stands before a game. It helps me kind of block out the outside noise and kind of just focus on the things I do well. And I think focus on yourself and kind of know yourself and know what works for you. And it's okay to not be okay and make mistakes. I think that's a good big thing as well. Is when you make a mistake, just know that everybody makes them, and without mistakes, there won't be any success. So I think it's just take those mistakes as a learning point and go out and do the best you can the next shift.
That knowing yourself portion I really like, because I think we are talking about that in so many different areas of hockey right now, whether it's supporting the LGBTQ plus community, where our identity is our identity and we need to just celebrate it and be comfortable with who we are and not feel outside of the game. And I think mental health in a way has that same idea, where we don't want to feel outside of our team or outside of our league or outside of our friend groups within our team. And that's for me in my area, that was a definite concern, that you didn't want to be seen as that type of player or that type of person where you were falling outside of that normal, I guess I don't want to call it normal, but the normal masculinity, that you were this tough, unfazed, played through injuries, never complained. If you were benched, you were just supposed to accept it and never feel sad about it, or whatever it might be. It's just, it was the way it was, and that's it's changing. I think nobody wants to be healthy scratch, or nobody wants to be sat on the bench or not make a team, and that's there's definitely emotions that go along with that, because someone like yourself is living a dream to continue on. So any setback you might have would be seen as could be seen as a major downfall in your own mind. But it's, I think it's a natural process of learning and improving and getting better. Now, my last thing for you then is, so talking about your organization, Zhilkin's Vision, how could people support what you're doing, or how could they donate? How could they find out more information? Where could they go to learn more about what you're doing and to help you with the goal of making mental health a more normalized conversation in hockey?
Yeah, so online it's just zhilkinsvision.com. That's our website, and on Instagram, Zhilkinsvision. We're not doing any donations right now, but we will in the future for sure. As I said, we raised $1,300 for the CMHA. We have Mental Health Mondays going on right now on our Instagram page, so just following those and just following us on Instagram would be very very appreciated, and just stay tuned for future donation links.
That's awesome. Danny, I thank you for joining me today. And obviously, we'll all be cheering for you when the Winnipeg Jets camp opens, and making sure that when you do take that next step and continue to do such good things in hockey and helping youth and opening this conversation about mental health, that I know I'll be there to donate, and I'm sure other people will as well when they see the goals that you're putting forward, not just as a hockey player, but as a person. So thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this conversation on mental health with Winnipeg Jets prospect Danny Zhilkin. Mental health in hockey is not always something that people talk about. There's still a stigma that hockey players must be tough, that they can't have emotions, that they can't feel sadness or pain, and that they're supposed to overcome adversity at all costs. But that's not always possible in the world. All of us are going to have bad days, and some of us are going to have bad weeks, months, and years. So seeking help, counseling, talking to a friend, finding personal wellness tools are going to be crucial for all of us. And recognizing that although we love the game of hockey, it's still a game. It's something that we can enjoy together, but it's not life. There's other things in our life that are always going to be more important than the game of hockey. So I'd encourage you that if you're ever struggling, please reach out to your local mental health supports, talk to a counselor, a friend, someone you trust. If there's a coach or a teammate that's out there that you can speak to, please do, because we all need more teammates like Danny Zhilkin. I'm Ian Kennedy, and this has been A Line Change.